Hi, I'm Paolo Nespoli, Italian astronaut of the European Space Agency, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about my spaceflight experience. I flew in space in 2007 the first time as part of the crew of Space Shuttle STS-120. This was a 15 days mission, short duration mission, to build the International Space Station. And after this mission, I thought I would fly again on the space shuttle. This time I was told I would get a spacewalk, which I was supposed to get already at the beginning, but for all sorts of reasons the priority was given to the American astronauts. And so I was waiting for this new assignment, but this somehow did not happen. There were several things that happened at several levels, and for all sorts of reasons, some of them I was not really happy with those, or I could not, understand those. But the bottom line is that this second flight on the shuttle never quite materialized until eventually I was told that I was assigned to another space flight. But this time, this would be a space flight to the International Space Station for a long duration stay with the Russian spacecraft. And when I was told this, I was kind of shocked. I was not expecting to having to become a trainee again, to learn again how to fly another spacecraft, to learn a new language, because obviously you need to be able to speak enough Russian to handle the systems on the Russian spacecraft, and stay in space for 6 months. I never thought, I wanted to go in space, but 6 months, that's a long time, and so I was kind of I don't even know. I mean, I felt like, wow, what did I get into this time? So I started training, and training turned out to be fairly enjoyable. When you learn new things and there are things that you like, and you put your mind in there, it's always enjoyable. I mean, I enjoy learning new spacecraft, new things, new methodology. On top of that, on the Soyuz spacecraft, I was flight engineer number 1, which essentially is a co-pilot. So I had to really learn to fly the spacecraft this time, do an undocking from the station and redocking on the other side. To do a re-entry, I had to learn to pilot the spacecraft in case of emergency, physically pilot it. And the training is interesting because the Russians make you do this one, first of all, in a small simulator, so you're just sitting there, it looks like you're playing computer games. So you do, 3, 4, 5 Gs, yeah. But then they take you and they put you inside a centrifuge. Now you're playing computer games inside a centrifuge that is spinning around and is shaking you and giving you the same Gs you are commanding the system, which changes a little bit, because if you're commanding 5 Gs, 5 Gs is something that you don't take so lightly and so easily. So now you're piloting and you are inside this thing, and you feel you're inside the spacecraft, and you're feeling what you actually would feel in space. So if you make a mistake, you feel it. You feel it immediately. So it was a really good change of pace. And then eventually, this was December 2010, we were launched from Baikonur, Soyuz TMA-20, launched to the space station, 8.5 minutes again, slightly different than the shuttle. The shuttle is a very strong and, I would not say, well, I would say it's a strong spacecraft. When the solid rocket booster lit up, those are monstrous engines that you really take the spacecraft and throw it in space. The Soyuz does not have solid engines. They are all liquid engines, and so they're very quiet and calm, and they put in a little bit of power at the same time. In fact, I still remember the countdown: 10, 9, 8, 5, 6, 3, 2, 1, lift off. And I was like, lift off? Did we lift off? Are you sure? Are we going? Yeah, we are going, because I was used to this boom of the shuttle, and you're going, and there it's very, very gentle. But then the Soyuz, which still needs to go at 28,000 kilometers per hour, Mach 25, so somehow it starts pushing, and in the last phases of the Soyuz flight, there is no limitation like the shuttle at 3Gs. It goes 4Gs, you know, it goes really, really high. So you really, at the end of the flight, you are really pinned into this little spacecraft until the engine cut off, where you really feel in space that you are thrown forward because the engine stops pushing, and there you know, there we go, there we are in space. Contrary to the space shuttle, where you, as soon as you go in space, you start working, we had what is called a 48 hours delay before docking to the station. So we were for 48 hours, almost 2 days, inside this little spacecraft with nothing to do. Well, almost nothing to do, meaning you have to do few maneuvers, do few things, but most of the time was actually spent in relaxing, getting used to microgravity, sleeping, because somehow you get there and you are tired for all you have done before, and adjusting to microgravity. And then we did the approach to station and the rendezvous and docking, which was very interesting and amazing. You know, on the space shuttle, this is done manually. With all the technology that there is on the shuttle, is done manually, and I was part of the team that did the rendezvous and docking. Very intensive processing, very choreography and everything. And on the Soyuz, we were just sitting there watching the automatic system doing this docking. We were ready, we were trained and ready to intervene in case of problem. Nothing happened. We were just watching there, and eventually we docked to station. And then we arrived on station and started this 6 months or 5.5 months on space. Now, you know, you're used to the space shuttle where things are like quick. You don't eat, you don't sleep. Oh, you're supposed to eat, you're supposed to sleep. But if you don't eat, you don't sleep, something happened, who cares? You know, 15 days later, you have gone back on the ground. But on a space station, things are actually different. You understand immediately that you are there for a long stay. It's like you're starting a marathon, and you're not starting like you're running for 100 meters. I mean, if you would do that, 200 meters later, you will lay down on the ground dead. You need to do a marathon, if not a double marathon. So start slowly, and then I understood the main difference between a short duration flight and a long duration flight is that on a long duration flight, you need to become accustomed to the environment where you are. Essentially, you need to become an extraterrestrial person. It means you need to understand that certain things are not there. Gravity, for example. So when you start doing things and you have your mindset as a terrestrial human beings and you try to do something, they will never work. So the first day it's kind of interesting because things don't work. You don't understand how you move around. You're banging to things. You try to do things in a certain way, and there's no reason for it. You could really flip around and do the other way, but you stay with your feet where it says deck or floor. You lose stuff all the time. This is one of the things that really drove me crazy on station, because anything that you have, you better let it go and it floats away. And here on the ground, you lose something, it's here, it cannot go there or there. It's right here. Well, in space, in the station or in space, guess what it is? I don't know. You may not find it anymore. I still remember at a certain point I lost a little camera, and it took us 15 days to find it again. And Katie Coleman, my colleague on the space station, found it. She brought it back to me, and I said, "Wow, I looked for it for 15 days. Where was it?" And she said, "I don't know. I was there on the Columbus laboratory, and I heard ding. The thing hit me on my head, and somehow it surfaced. We don't know where it was." So you really need to change. You really need to become something else. And it's interesting how at the beginning you really want to have Houston looking at you, or Moscow or Munich or Tsukuba. You're doing something and you really want to have a camera that show them what you're doing, and you tell them, "Hey, I'm doing this. Hey, what about this?" If you're unsure about something, you call and you ask. And then little by little, you become the owner of this space. You don't waste any more 15 minutes looking for a certain tool and you don't find it, and you have to call Houston and they have to tell you. Now you know what it is. You read something cryptic, or at least it looked cryptic on the instructions, and you know exactly what it means. You get to the point where it's you telling Houston, hey, it says here we should do things in a certain way, but I would recommend we do it in a different way. And usually, Houston is very good. They will tell you something like stand by, because they have to talk between each other. And then, 15 seconds, 30 seconds later, they usually will come back and say, go ahead, we watch what you're doing. Meaning that, that's interesting what you're proposing. We'll let you do it. Let's experiment. We'll take care of nothing bad happen. But let's see. And it was interesting to me when, for many of the things that I proposed, next time I saw the experiment, I saw the procedure, what I did propose was actually written there, was taken as a part of something that was really done at different. This is when you really become the owner of this space. And I would say that 6 months are long, but are very enjoyable in space. First of all, we are really busy. The general working day starts around 7:30 in the morning. And goes all the way to 8:30 in the evening. This is kind of the working hours where the planners in Houston can actually plan activities, and they actually are trying to cram, to put in there as much as possible, because we astronauts on board are one of the resources of the station, like electricity, like, audio signal, water, oxygen, and they need to make sure that all these resources are scheduled in a way that there is no conflict and things can flow. So your task on board is just try to follow what they ask you to do. If you do this, you make sure you have no problems. It's not always easy, not always happens, but if you try, it works. And then on this time frame, from 7:30, there is usually a half an hour talk with all the control center to set the day, and half an hour talk at the end of the day to debrief on what happened. There are a 2-hour time frame for physical fitness. We do in space every single day 1 hour of cardiovascular exercise, which can be on a cycle ergometer, kind of a space bike, or on a treadmill, just to make your blood flow. Your heart will tend in 0G to really get small and not work the muscles, the bones, so you need to do this cardiovascular exercise. And then we do another hour of weight lifting, which is kind of strange scenario. Weightless situation and you do weightlifting, but there is an equipment where you can actually really dial how much compression you can have between a platform and a bar, and you are in the middle there, and you can do, lift up this bar or do squat to exercise your legs, the spine, the arms, and there is a protocol that makes sure that we do exercises all the muscles of the body. So 2 hours of physical fitness, and 1 hour lunch break usually, which usually you don't manage to take because you're always running to do something. I tried every day at least to do at least 15 minutes and eat something quick, not to jump food, because food in space is also very important. Saturday, Sunday, the planning it's a little bit less intense. Usually you have a part of the day which is free, and we usually volunteer this time to carry out experiments or activity that the planners could not fit into their regular time. They always have a list of activities, say, please guy, if you have time, if you want, these are the list of activities that needs to be done, and we did not manage to put them in. So usually I would volunteer 4 or 5 hours each day, Saturday and Sunday, to carry out this. You actually also have a video conference with home. That's very important. You need to make sure that you maintain your contact with the ground, and talk to your parents. I would talk to my wife, to my daughter. They don't see you. This is a two-way thing. They want to see that you are okay, but you want to see that they are okay, because the last thing you want to do is being in space worrying that something is wrong with your family and you cannot do anything. So there is this kind of transfer of information, transfer of love, if we wanted to call it like this. And so at the end, 6 months for me flew fairly quickly. I would have loved to stay a little bit more. It would have told me and asked me, would you like to stay a few more days, few more weeks? I would have signed up, no question asked, for another couple of months. There were a lot of things that I wanted to do. I really, for example, like to take pictures from up on the station. I enjoy the fact that I could call people on the phone and talk to them from the station, surprise them, or leave nasty messages on the answering machine. I'm calling you from space and you're not there, things like that. I would enjoy that. We had several high-profile conference call or video call with President Obama, at least a couple of times, President Putin, the President of Italy. We even talked to the Pope. We had several things. We had many activities done with schools. We actually did in our increment the record so far for the contacts with school using the ham radio, which is one of the assets on board. We had 77 schools contacted during our mission, which is a lot. So we really tried to make the best out of it, and I would say that it was a pretty special time. Pretty special time where in one way I was able to do the job that I wanted to do, being an astronaut, but also enjoy this new situation, familiarize myself, becoming an extraterrestrial person, floating around like Superman or Spider-Man, and talking to whoever I wanted, and be part of science, because this is the main reason we go in space, is to carry out experiments or activities that you cannot do on ground. And it was really fulfilling for me as an engineer to be able to carry out an experiment on behalf of the scientists, and then send back to them the data, and I would see there was good data. When I would get good data, good results, I would be so proud and be able to contribute of further a little bit our knowledge and know-how on that field. So for all guys that are there, this was a quick summary on my experience on the space flight. I'm looking forward for you to do the same. Somebody needs to go to Mars, right? So you guys need to come up with something, bring us to Mars, and then let me know how it goes. I will be a little bit envious of you. Ciao.